I don't know, Brian, other than the callousness, the cruelty, the fear and intimidation, the signal that it sends to everyone else. And I really do feel like the Trump administration is not wild about being ordered by any federal court judge, whether it's a trial court judge or the Supreme Court, ordered to return immigrants that they deported, even if they did it wrongfully and unconstitutionally, because it sets a bit of an atmospheric precedent. And now the Supreme Court will be able to sort of monitor, loosely speaking, any alleged illegal, unconstitutional deportations. And if they see fit to say, you know what, we're going to again order you to bring this person back. It feels like it's an atmospheric precedent that the Trump administration is trying desperately to avoid setting.
Right. That makes sense. Another precedent that I think is worth discussing here is Trump's claim that he's going to respect what the Supreme Court says, because inherent within that claim is this idea that unless it's the Supreme Court, then, that he feels no obligation to follow a court's orders. Can you speak on that? What is your reaction to hearing that Donald Trump feels like he only has to follow the court orders of one court, a court that just so happens to be 6-3 in Republicans' favor?
Yeah, that's a great point. So actually, the executive branch has to abide by all federal court orders directing it to do or not do something unless they appeal the order, the judge, either the trial court judge or the appellate court judges, stay or stop or pause the order from being implemented. You know, that is the only circumstance under which the federal government can say, yeah, you know, there are court orders out there, but we're not inclined to abide by them unless it's a Supreme Court order. Right. Only if a stay is issued. So listen, Donald Trump is wrong. Donald Trump is flexing. And why wouldn't he flex? He has been, you know, reaching for more and more and more executive branch power, much of it lawless, some of it even unconstitutional. And it seems like he's not going to stop until somebody stops him. And, you know, generally speaking, in the criminal justice system, in the federal court system, the one that has sort of the paramount ability to stop him is the Supreme Court. But as long as he's appealing the ruling up the chain and there are stays in place during the appeals process, well, he does have the opportunity to not comply with those lower court orders unless and until the Supreme Court finally and definitively rules.
And obviously, Glenn, you know, all of this would kind of be moot if we don't know how Abrego Garcia is doing right now. Is there anything that would indicate whether he's even alive at this point?
Yeah, great question. There was a declaration filed in court today by a law enforcement official from the Department of Justice. Now, before I tell you what it said, Brian, I don't want to tease our audience, but we have to remember that the judge, the trial court judge in Maryland, ordered the Department of Justice, ordered the Trump administration to provide a declaration on three things: where Abrego Garcia is, what steps the Trump administration has taken to, quote, facilitate his return, which is what the Supreme Court ordered, and three, what additional steps will be taken. Well, the Department of Justice completely failed to abide by the court order to provide that declaration with those three asks of the judge. And for that, here is what the judge said in a brand new order that was issued within the past 24 hours. This is Judge Shines from the Maryland Federal Court. Defendants have failed to comply with this court's order directing that you provide information about his current physical location and custodial status. 2, what steps, if any, have you taken to facilitate his immediate return to the United States? And 3, what additional steps will you take to facilitate his return? And basically, the Department of Justice blew it off. So the judge has now found that they violated that order. We'll talk about where that may head in a minute. And then they belatedly filed a declaration today. And I think this is going to really set the judge off, as well it should. They again had the opportunity to answer those three questions after violating the order once. And here is what the DOJ law enforcement official said. it's my understanding, based on official reporting from our embassy in San Salvador, that Garcia is currently being held in the Terrorism Confinement Center in El Salvador. He is alive and secure in that facility. He is detained pursuant to the sovereign domestic authority of El Salvador. There's a lot to unpack in those few sentences. One, to answer your question somewhat belatedly, they say he's alive. They say he's secure in the facility, but they neglect to answer all of the other questions the judge ordered them to answer. Now they're just repeatedly thumbing their nose at the authority of the federal district court judge. But then they tag on this kind of ominous sentence at the end. Well, you know, he's detained pursuant to the sovereign domestic authority of El Salvador.
That's what I wanted to dig into, because doesn't them saying that kind of suggest that, oh, this is out of our hands, this is the sovereign territory, this is the sovereign jurisdiction of El Salvador, and what could we possibly do? He's not ours anymore, he belongs to them?
That's exactly the message they were trying to send with that sentence that was not responsive to the judge's questions. It was gratuitous. And, you know, I'm going to call it provocative, and I'm also going to call it inconsistent with what the president just said. Think about it. The president said, if the Supreme Court tells us to bring him back, we will bring him back. Inferentially, we can bring him back. And then you have this law enforcement official declaration saying, well, he is being held by a sovereign country. Read between the lines. How could we possibly bring him back? Well, here's the thing. We sent him there unlawfully and unconstitutionally. We are paying to keep him there, and it is laughable and frankly insulting that they suggest we can't possibly get one of these prisoners back because, you know, they're now in another country. So what does that conjure up? I guess the United States government, Donald Trump's Department of Justice, can basically grab up anybody they want off the street with no legal authority to do so, send them to foreign countries, and thereafter they can simply say, hey, they're in foreign countries, nothing we can do about it. That is effing absurd.
Right, and that's the part I think that they want to establish, is that so long as they can grab somebody up, hell, they can grab me, they can grab you, and then just send us off to El Salvador, and then once we're gone, they could just lean on this excuse, this precedent that they're trying to establish right now, which is, hey, once he's over there, what could we possibly do? We would love to bring him back, but it's simply not our jurisdiction, and so, you know, no harm, no foul, but it's out of our hands at this point.
Yeah, it is un-American, plain and simple. Not only, you know, a gross violation of the due process clause found in the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution, it is inhumane. I mean, it comports with no sort of minimal respect for the rights of our fellow human beings, whether you're an immigrant or not. So I don't think this position will withstand legal scrutiny, particularly when and if this thing makes its way back up to the Supreme Court, which, Brian, it may in the near term, because there's yet another hearing set on for this coming Tuesday, when the judge ordered a couple of things. She said, first of all, you will start answering those questions, and you're going to answer them on a daily basis. And I want you back in court in person on Tuesday. And Garcia's lawyers have already formally asked the judge to set what's called a show cause hearing to force the DOJ officials to show cause why they shouldn't be held in contempt for their past violations of the court order.
Right. I mean, at this point, I don't know what we're doing other than just wasting time. If the Supreme Court said that they have to facilitate this guy's return, and now we're going back and forth and arguing between a DOJ that is not only arguing something antithetical to what Trump himself said, but arguing something that the Supreme Court already ruled that they have to do. I don't get what the argument is here, and I don't get what the delay is here, when they should just be complying with this court order, getting him back. Like, we're not trying to, you know, cure cancer here in the next couple of days. We're just trying to get somebody who we are paying this El Salvadoran prison to house and just put him on a plane back. It doesn't seem like it's that difficult, and yet when the Trump administration doesn't want to do something, clearly it's that difficult.
Yeah, it's a tyrannical power grab, plain and simple. And the other thing is, they love their